Key points of Travis Beck's Principles of Ecological Landscape Design with illustrations by Diane Richmond. As human influence over the planet grows, and as the built environment increases in prominence, the landscapes we design and manage will play an increasingly important role. From now on, the ecological function of our planet can come only from a network of preserved, restored, managed, and constructed landscapes. To maintain the function of this network and the quality of life that it offers, we will have to change the way we think about landscape design. We can learn from the natural ecosystems that scientists have studied. An ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. We'll look at the temperate broadleaf forest. Ecosystems organize in different ways, by structure. Canopy trees, understory trees, upright herbaceous plants, deeply rooted plants, ground-covering herbaceous plants, shrubs, and vines. These are the 7 layers of a natural temperate forest. Ecosystems organize by resources. Canopy height, how much light can they reach? Rooting depth, how much water can they reach? How many different resources are they able to reach? Are they creating associations with different microbes? These are called niche axes. And by energy flow. The hawk is a secondary consumer. It eats a rabbit. The rabbit is a consumer. It eats plants. Plants are producers. They are able to take the energy from the sun and build matter. And the decomposers break everything down into a form that the producers are able to use. These are the trophic levels. And by life history strategies. Some plants focus on getting big and storing water, like the sedum, while others focus on speedy reproduction, like the dandelion. This organization, full of negative feedback loops, creates a relatively stable dynamic equilibrium. However, disturbance can knock out equilibrium. Resilience is the ability to go through adaptive cycles without losing everything in the transition. Ecosystems change through nested adaptive cycles called panarchy. So think of remember as the ground is full of seeds waiting to germinate. It feeds into reorganization where, based on conditions, some seeds germinate, and that feeds into exploitation where they grow and compete, and then into conservation, which is stability. So the revolt stage would be a disturbance like a fire or a genetic mutation, which are small and fast change. Those feed into the release phase, which is creative destruction and uncertainty, which cycles back to reorganization, and so on. Biodiversity is the key to the maintenance of the world as we know it. The variation of living organisms adds to stability overall in the face of disturbance and change. Seeds with different genes make plants with different adaptations. Diversity of species is important, but so is diversity within a species. Allowing plants to go to seed allows the landscape to evolve over time to be perfectly suited to a particular location and its microclimate. It also makes it more likely that at least one seed will survive future possible conditions. Diversity of sizes and ages of species adds stability too, by staggering change. Ecological landscape design. The 3 focuses of landscape ecology are structure, function, and change. Biodiversity is an important factor in each of these areas. Structure. So in designing our landscapes, we should include diverse plantings that can become healthy ecosystems. We should assemble tight communities that fill all the niches and levels in an ecosystem. Design an appropriate landscape for your biome. Mimic the structure of natural communities while substituting species. Design the built environment to support biodiversity. Design for the least intensive human management. Use green infrastructure to restore pre-development hydrology. Meet plant water needs through contouring and drainage. Design to restore and create soils that are well-structured, functional, and full of life. Allow plants to interact with the soil community. Create real habitat, a a place that satisfies an organism's need for food, water, cover, and a place to raise young. Function. We should prioritize function, particularly carbon sequestration. Urban vegetation offers these ecosystem services: temperature reduction, erosion control, soil building, and carbon sequestration. A properly functioning soil ecosystem can provide the fertility needed to grow adapted plants without the need of added fertilizers. Wetland ecosystems can manage and filter runoff and clean water. Offshore ecosystems, like reefs, can buffer against catastrophic storms. Spread the performance of important functions out over multiple species. Change. We should plan for resilience in preparation for climate change, which is predicted to cause habitat change and migration northward and severe ecological disruption. Create landscapes that embrace the forces of wind, fire, and flood as part of their natural cycles. Make disturbances regenerative. For example, take advantage of a 100-year flood by planning to absorb the abundance of the resource. Count on disturbance and plan for succession. Ecosystems can exist in alternative stable states. Design multiple acceptable versions of a landscape that will emerge based on weather and disturbance. Include plants with different responses to environmental change. Periodic disturbance diversifies habitat, so use disturbance as a management tool. Resilience requires good bones, well-built hardscape, topography with memory and nutrient-retaining form, well-placed and established trees and resilient plants. And resilience requires flexible elements, ephemeral plantings, humans to anticipate and get ahead of change and support rather than resist the landscape's evolution. Connectivity. Anticipating change, we should build corridors of habitat to facilitate migration and preservation of biodiversity. And throughout the country, small and large landscapes can become adjacent patches of habitat for wildlife. We will not see again the extensive unmolested biomes that once covered this continent. However, we can offer this surrogate, an interconnected network of large preserves, forest fragments, riparian corridors, restored grasslands, working landscapes, constructed wetlands, and well-designed parks and yards.